Hello, everyone. So we're back with another episode of Life in Law, and we have our guest Ryan is with us today. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So did you want to just tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ryan Kohler, out of Chicago. I was a child victim of the system myself, 9 years old, put into the system by my parents who were having a high conflict divorce. Went through the whole thing 30 years ago. The GAL, the child psych, the child rep lawyer, never allowed to say my story or my side of anything. And basically, they put me in the home of the abuser. And I was raised somewhere between both parents and always in conflict and always under stress. And so I thought I could avoid it for my own children, and I was wrong. So I went through my own high conflict divorce. Actually, technically, it wasn't a high conflict divorce. It was very simple. It was a high conflict co-parenting situation after that. And now my daughter is in the same system that I grew up in.
And so both you and your daughter were within the system in Colorado?
In Chicago. Well, I was in she's in Chicago's system. I was in Pennsylvania's system. I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Okay. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the struggles that you've had with the system in Chicago?
I don't know if we have that much time, but I'll do my best to simplify it. So I came to the court with a verified complaint of my daughter being molested by her stepfather. We had video, we had witnesses, and we had my daughter's own testimony, as well as the school records with her describing the incidents to the school social worker. I brought that as a complaint to file temporary parenting relocation to my home until my ex broke up with her boyfriend. The judge didn't hear it. The ex-wife's lawyers started fabricating against me. Everything from mental abuse of the child, lying to the child, preventing the child from seeing her mother, attempts to alienate the mother because of the boyfriend. And it was about a year of this. It was basically like June of 21. No, actually earlier than that. It was April of 21 through March of 22 was just nonstop bi-weekly complaints, attempts to remove my daughter from my home with whatever new thing they came up with. The judge did not allow it to happen until I filed my third complaint about the molestation in January of 22. And I cited the school and I cited DCFS, which is our CPS, because we have Chicago Public Schools. So Child Protective Services we don't call it that. We call it DCFS, Department of Child and Family Services. DCFS reports were made against the stepfather. And within 2 weeks, my daughter was removed from my home pending the investigation into the pedophile. Make it make sense.
So during that time, she was with them during the investigation?
We were that year, April 21 through March of 22, we still had 50-50 joint physical placement custody with no alimony and no child support. That was our divorce agreement. So we were still 50-50 the entire year during all of these filings.
So DCF never thought it was beneficial to pause the visitation during the investigation?
DCFS was pending when they took her away from my side. I submitted a report for DCFS against the now fiance, once boyfriend.
And so then they said that they're going to remove her from your care during that investigation?
The judge, on filing that DCFS and reporting it to the court that I did file a DCFS complaint, and it pending, hence AKA not, no findings yet.
Mm-hmm.
GAL, Gloria Block, opposing counsel Jessica Sindel, and the school social worker, Laura Campbell of District 64, Park Ridge, Illinois, fabricated a DCFS investigation into me simultaneously as a retaliatory to my investigation.
Saying what?
Except they fabricated it. It never existed. But they told the judge in affidavit that the school filed a DCFS complaint against me. My daughter was removed within 30 seconds.
And then whatever happened with the investigations, did they close those other
My
ones?
daughter confirmed the lap sitting and the name calling and the fighting to stay alone with him. Like him and my ex would fight about his time with her. She confirmed through the judge's own assigned psych that the hotel game that they played. Hotel game was when mom was out of the house. They laid in bed together and serviced each other as hotel guests. And if she didn't have enough money to pay him to work the hotel, she had to do him favors.
And is this something that she disclosed in a forensic interview?
She disclosed it and it was confirmed, yet it came back no findings from DCFS.
And what was their reasoning for not
Because
corroborating?
they didn't do a forensic interview. They did not do a forensic on my daughter.
So, okay, so when she made the disclosure, was this directly
It was
to
in a
the police?
report, and it was just, but the bottom line of the report said no findings.
But she never had a forensic interview.
No.
They just said that in their report that allegedly this is what was said, and that even though this was said, we're going to say that there's no findings of abuse or neglect.
Correct.
And then they found
Their exact phrasing was, we don't have criteria for grooming. We only have criteria for sexual assault. This does not qualify as sexual assault. Hence, there's no findings.
And then what about the alleged report that they said was made about you? Was that found to have been substantiated, or did they
Oh, no,
say
though the judge upheld this non-existing DCFS pending investigation into me for 3 solid months and kept my daughter away from me for 3 solid months, from March of 22 to May of 22. And what happened was I got, through hustling through every level of government, I got the state of Illinois to state on record with my name, my social, my birth date, that there was never a call made about me. I gave it to the judge because her order said temporary suspension of parenting until investigation is complete. Well, there's no investigation. And her ruling every single hearing every week for 3 months was, well, as long as there's a pending complaint, I can't rule to give her back to you. And finally, I gave a letter to her in May stating there was never a call made, which proved her GAL, her child psych assigned, and opposing counsel fabricated 66 lies against me. The judge opened the letter from the state of Illinois, said, I don't have my glasses, I can't read this. And I said, I'll read it to you. We read it into record, clearing my name, and by her own order in March, restoring my full custody. And the judge says, this proves nothing. We're going to extend until custody evaluator's finished. And didn't give me my daughter back after I proved the fabrication of the claim.
And so did you then try to appeal or take it to federal?
I appealed and it was dismissed.
Which court did you appeal to?
Illinois appeals court.
And so in Illinois, do they have like a court of appeals and then Supreme Court above it?
Yes, but the Supreme Court doesn't hear domestic. It only stops at appellate court with Illinois.
So even if you want to challenge the appellate's decision, you're not allowed to if it's domestic?
That's correct.
That's crazy, even if it's a constitutional violation?
Yes.
And is
Because
that like
they don't rule it
in
as
their law?
constitutional violation in the agreement. It's a judge's power to temporarily suspend. Temporary means temporary, so that means that she has carte blanche to keep it as long as she wants.
Right. And like that's part of what they do is they give these judges all this discretion and then they abuse it in order to drag these cases on or endanger children because they
Well,
know
my
that
daughter's been living with a pedophile. By the way, that's not my word. That's the judge's custody evaluator calling him a pedophile. Okay. That's the school board calling him a pedophile. They have allowed my daughter to live with him in his house with my ex-wife for 3 years. No contact with me at all. And I'm still temporarily suspended.
And when's the last time? So you haven't spoken to your daughter in 3 years?
March of 22. So yeah, 3 years and change now, 3.5 years.
And is there any like restraining order or protective order that says that you can't contact?
There's no direct protective order, but the child rep lawyer who was assigned after I proved the fabrication of the DCFS case into me. So I cut the legs out from underneath the GAL. The same hearing, the judge assigns a new child rep lawyer, jacks her rate from the standard $275 an hour max in Illinois to $475 an hour max in Illinois, gives the GAL a pay raise up to $475 an hour in Illinois, and then tries to bleed me dry, so I quit. She was assigned Gail O'Connor. Gail O'Connor, without meeting me, refusing to meet me actually, without talking to my daughter, and without reviewing the case files, 3 days into the case, quashed my subpoenas, quashed my appeal, and stated on the record that my daughter should not have access to me via phone or Zoom, even though we previously had that in the parenting agreement.
And did anyone ever say that you guys had the right to hire your own minors counsel or your own GAL, or did they only force you to use the court appointed
I was
ones?
I was not given the option, and I was not allowed to have that option after I asked about it.
And they said you have to use theirs or nothing, and they picked it?
Yes,
And
judge assigned her entire team.
And have you ever seen other parents in, like your area where they're getting assigned to these same bad actor GALs over and over?
Oh, there's great online feedback on GAL Gloria Block and child rep lawyer Gail O'Connor calling each of them separately, not me calling them this. Satan spawn, evil incarnate, child abusive, horrendous blood-sucking vampires, destruction of children, destroyer of families, blood-curdling psychopaths. Like there's dozens of parents calling them this, and yet they're assigned to all these high conflict cases. It's the same team assigned by Judge Karen Bowes.
And have you or anyone you know ever tried to file a grievance on this GAL? Because they're a lawyer, right?
Multiple grievances to GAL. ARIBC, which is the Illinois Review Board for lawyers. I filed 4 different complaints. They're supposed to be kept on record. They may have been unfounded, but they're supposed to be kept on record. So 4 complaints have been filed against this lawyer. If you currently search Gloria Block's history, there's no complaints filed just from my 4. And I know for a fact, after talking to Illinois and Cook County parents, there's another 20 complaints that have been filed against Gloria Block that I know of. So that's 24 complaints of this woman who've been erased from record.
So in the process, when you make a complaint, do they tell you like, we're not going to your complaint is unfounded? Do they notify you, or what do they do?
Oh, you're not allowed to submit any files via email. You have to use their online system. You have to use PDF only. You have to only 1 page to explain the story, which is never enough to explain what they're doing.
Are you kidding me? 1 page?
Oh yeah, so 1 page. Yeah, if you can't fit it in 1 page form, you can't submit it. You have to file the evidence. They can review it in their own time, and then they give you a response from the submittal to their website stating unfounded. We're not going to pursue this.
And then there's no appeal, and they don't have to say why.
No, that's it.
You know what? It's crazy because like in Connecticut, they also have like they make it so impossible. Like for example, they say you can't do it online. You have to do it by paper. It needs to be notarized, and you need to have like 7 original copies of your complaint and all your evidence. So like if you have all this evidence, imagine having to make 7 copies of it and then pay to have it shipped to their office. And then they turn around and they say, oh, well, you said that your lawyer said this, but there's no proof that he ever said that. Therefore, we're dismissing this. So it's basically like, okay, if you don't have proof that something happened, they just say it never happened and deny it. And then if you didn't secretly record it, you're screwed. And then it's like you try to sue them. And then if you do it in state court, they're friends with the judges. They all know each other. They're all buddies. And so it's like a small state. Connecticut is extremely small, where it's like, everybody knows everybody. And even the federal
Cook
system.
County, even though it's Chicago, Cook County obviously is our downtown county. But Cook County is the same way. It's the biggest small town in America. Every lawyer knows every other lawyer. When I went out to find a new counsel, when I fired my counsel, I was interviewing people and they're like, oh, I know Gloria. She's a friend of mine. Oh, I know Gail. She's a friend of mine. Oh, we went golfing together. Oh, we went to this wedding together. Oh, I remember her from our sorority. And I'm like, you fucking clowns.
I totally understand. And you know what? It's so messed up. Like, there's a one lawyer, I'm going to say her name. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. It's Stephanie Bernstein from Connecticut. And I spoke to her when my daughter was taken away after I reported that she was being sexually abused by her older half brother at the dad's house during dad's visits. And it was being investigated, same thing. And then I was accused of lying, lost her. And I was so upset. I showed the videos to this lawyer, Stephanie Bernstein, that my daughter was doing inappropriate acts on her stuffed animals and then saying that she's doing what the brother does to her. And then she did the same acts and the same disclosures in a forensic interview, and they still wouldn't do anything. And they tried to say, oh, even if it's inappropriate, it's not criminal, even though it counts as sexual assault in the 4th degree under Connecticut statute. So I tried to, go forward with that, whatever. And they just, wouldn't arrest him and whatever. I end up losing custody because the judge accuses me of lying. And so I sent all these videos. I sent proof of the forensic interview disclosure to this lawyer, and she looked at the forensic interview disclosure, and it said, like, we do not recommend any unsupervised contact between Angelina and Dominic, and that's the brother. And so the lady was like, if it says that, why the F are they letting him have custody? Why the F is she still in that home if you have a medical records of her making a disclosure? And I was like, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, please help me. I'm like, I'm so desperate. Please, begging and crying for her to take my case. She wanted $5,000 in a retainer. I said, I'm going to give you the money. I signed the retainer. I'm said, please let me pay you so you could take over the case. She said, listen, I believe you. I really want to help you. And I really believe your daughter and everything. But this is my bread and butter. And no matter how much I want to help you, I just can't go against Grossman. And that's the judge. She goes, if I go against her, I'll never make money again.
So I'm going to say something out loud, and you can edit it out if you want to. But you have Bernstein. You've got, what was the judge's name?
Grossman.
Yep. I have Bose, who is Jewish. I've got Gloria Block, who's Jewish. I've got all these others who are Jewish. I have noticed in all of my research, because I've done about 600 case reviews now in Cook County and other places to find the pattern that's emerged. And it is bizarre that almost every case has a Jewish judge or a Jewish GAL attached to it in my research. I would say over 90% of them have it. And again, my family not being Jewish, I can't speak to their education or their religion. I don't know it very well. But it's bizarre that it's a pattern that's emerged in my research. And my case is no different. And what's bizarre is I've learned a lot of things in this case in my research, but what I've learned the most distinct pattern is the minute that there is some level of abuse, physical, verbal, sexual, the parent who submitted the complaint is removed. The parent trying to expose, trying to illuminate, trying to transparency the situation is immediately removed. And what I've learned is it has nothing to do with protecting children. It has to do with the protective parent's going to spend every dollar they have to save their kids. And the bad parent will spend every dollar they have to defend themselves and their reputation. And so they're just cashing checks every single week, every single month from these desperate parents, desperate to protect their crimes and desperate to protect their children on two sides. If they would just put the kid in the assumed better home, they would make no money. The case would be over within 6 weeks. Mine's going on 4 years, and actually our filing was 2016, so it's going on 9 years.
Same. My first filing was 2016, so it'll be 10 years next year. And you know what? I think that you're right about them wanting to prolong it because, you know, in theory, when all of these administrative courts started to be formed, the idea was, okay, let's use ADR, let's use mediation, let's use these alternative dispute mechanisms so that people don't have to have these lengthy, expensive trials. And in theory, that stuff works. But what they started doing was exploiting it. And when they tied in a lot of this federal funding, especially through like Title IV of the Social Security Act, especially like Title 4D, where states are getting matched 66 cents per dollar on every dollar spent on enforcement of child support. Not even child support itself, enforcement. So if they spend money to go take somebody's license away, or if they take money to go put a lien on your property, or whatever they want to do, take money out of your check, that costs money for them to send your employer a subpoena, doing all that, right? Every time that they do that, they're getting extra money matched from the federal government for free. And that money also goes towards funding the pensions for a lot of these judges. So like there's direct.
Well, let me pause you right there. It's not just domestic judges. The pensions are being funded for all judges. So if you've covered this on other episodes, I want to just cover it again because how important this is.
Yep.
You have appeal judges. You have federal judges. You've got domestic judges, civil judges, all benefiting from the program. So if you file a civil case against a GAL, they don't want it to go to trial because you're going to expose the corruption and they might lose their paycheck. They may lose their pension. So the civil judges push it. I've had 4 different civil cases dismissed in Illinois on these people. If you go appeal, your appeal is immediately thrown out because it's domestic. It goes back to the judge's nonstop power because the appeal judges make money from the pension from the 4D program. If you go federal, same thing. And federal had to file in a different state because of the issues with the federal prosecution of appeal in Illinois. So you have 4 layers of judges, domestic, civil, appeal, and federal, who all are making money from the 4D program, who will protect the 4D lawyers and judges to not expose the 4D corruption. And then on top of all of that craziness, then you have the judges, at least in Illinois, this is how Illinois works. I'm not sure about Connecticut or other places. The only person who can remove a judge from a case is the same judge. They have to recuse themselves. You cannot get any other body, including the Judicial Review Board. You cannot get another body to remove a sitting judge in domestic court.
What?
So I have to apply to Karen Bowes to say, Judge Karen Bowes, your judging is terrible. Please judge to remove yourself as judge. And her order would be, I've judged my own judging, and I've judged that my judging is great. I'm going to keep being the judge. I'm not exaggerating. That's how it reads in Illinois, because you cannot get these pieces of shit removed.
You know what's funny? You should look up the like legislative history of that, because like in Connecticut, it used to say 2 years ago, it used to say that if you file a motion to recuse a judge, that the judge is required to either recuse themselves or refer it to another judge to have a hearing on the recusal. That's what it used to say, right? So I started filing recusals on Grossman and some of these other bad judges, and they would hand it to somebody else. Then in March of 2024, I had a hearing, and I said to a different judge that I had filed a motion for him to recuse himself. And he goes, okay, well, I'm denying that. And I was like, by law, you're not allowed to. You're required to either refer it to another judge or recuse yourself. And he's like, oh, well, nope, that's not true. So I pulled up the practice book, and it said, oh, edited February 2024. And this was like the first week of March. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just putting it on the record that you guys just quietly changed the rules. And then I started digging deeper, and I'm like, who makes the rules? Like, who writes the practice book? Because that's not statutes. You know, like how they have like Connecticut general statutes, which are made by the legislature. Those are the actual laws and criminal codes and stuff like that. Okay, fine. But with the Connecticut practice book, which is the largest in the country, it's like 800 pages long. It gives all the rules for proceedings of court and all that stuff. So in the practice book, if it says a judge must let another judge do it and they can't rule on their own recusal, but then a litigant like me brings up that they need to have someone else do it, then they quietly change the rules. Who's making those decisions? It's not the legislature. It's not being voted on by the public. So I found out that they have what's called the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee is made up of some judges and a couple lawyers, and they're all friends and the same people.
Judges, some friends, some golf buddies.
And then to your point of what you said earlier about the pensions, another person from my state who was getting screwed over for like millions of dollars in real estate that they're illegally, fraudulently foreclosing on homes that were like in a trust and all this stuff. Anyways, this guy told me, look up, you can see everything that these judges fill out, like a financial disclosure statement by law, all the federal judges, and it's online through the district court's website. So I pulled it up. 2 of the judges who ruled against me in federal court, 2 of them were former state judges, and one of them was a former public defender that was actually my public defender one time, and he still wouldn't recuse himself. I looked into their disclosure statement thing. 2 of them are receiving state judge pensions from the state of Connecticut while they're sitting as federal judges, and they're protecting the state judges. And it's like insane because like, how can they, not only are they collecting these federal pensions, but they're collecting a state pension for the rest of their life, even when they're not even working there anymore. So it's like they're double dipping in so many different ways. And there's way too many financial incentives to make any
I'll
of this.
give you a little nugget into the Cook County system. You mentioned about judges' disclosures.
Yeah.
We are the only county in the United States that does not require domestic or civil judges to give financial disclosures.
Really?
Only county in the country.
And other counties in Illinois do require it?
Only Cook County.
And why is that?
Every judge who protects these pedophiles and child abusers and everything else, I tried to do what you and many other parents did. I tried to dig up where the money was going, how it was being channeled. Well, I couldn't find anything on Judge Karen Bowes, although she has given some very high-level cases, like who was the Academy Award-winning girl, the black girl from Chicago, singer, dancer, whatever. She had a very, very high-profile divorce, and they handed it to Bowes and gave her a nice big pay raise to do a very public divorce. They give these judges like gifts. Here's this amazing, expensive case. Here's this high-profile case. Here's this high-profile thing. They give these lawyers like consulting jobs for 3 times their current lawyer salary. You know, everyone in my case was promoted after my case was static. The Illinois school board lawyer went from an associate to a partner. Young guy, Kevin McCown, probably no older than 30. Shaking, lying to the judge about my daughter's medical records and psychology records, shaking, almost peeing himself. And he was named partner after my daughter's case was dismissed. Gloria Block's partner mysteriously died. And then in her husband's obituary, please don't send flowers, send donations to Jewish Child Abuse Relief Fund. Oh, okay, so Jewish kids are okay not to be abused, but my daughter being molested is fine because you made $40,000 on that case. And then you look at other cases,
nonprofits.
And then opposing counsel started the case as an associate. She was a former GAL in St. Louis. She moved to Chicago, probably because St. Louis kicked her out. Opposing counsel went from associate to senior associate to junior partner to moving to another firm, becoming a partner in the course of the case. So she got promoted through channels, and she couldn't be promoted in the same category, so they had to move her to another firm. And that's what people don't understand. It's not just the judges and the state 4D. These lawyers kick each other favors, kick each other cash. And what me and another father found out was there was a dummy BLM charity in Cook County that they were channeling money through to pay off judges and lawyers. They were fixing cases through a dummy BLM charity.
And did anyone get in trouble for that?
No, all cases were dismissed.
That's what I mean. It's like the corruption runs so deep, and like it's a lot like too in Connecticut, they kind of like recycle the same people. Like somebody who's a judge, next he'll get a job as a prosecutor. Then he'll get a job as an attorney general. Then he'll get a job as the head of the appellate court or something. So it's like these people can retain control. Then they send their daughter to law school and she gets a job fresh out of law school working at the state's attorney's office. And it's like, okay, did she earn that job or was it handed to her because of who she knows? And like, I went to law school in University of Connecticut State of Law for 2 years until I went on a leave of absence. And during that time, they taught us networking. It's all about who you know. If you look at these like bar association events, it's going to like country clubs and sitting there like listening to a presentation for like 30 minutes and then spending like 2 hours having cocktails and socializing. And you're sitting there with other lawyers, judges, and having food and eating and hanging out. That's your bar association meeting. And so it's like, okay, then when you go to court and that judge sees you, they're going to remember that they met you at the event. And so it's like, then they're going to just, or the judge will go out for lunch with one of the opposing counsel and then they'll make a deal with them. This one's going to get a promotion in exchange for a ruling. I help you, you help me. And then they all hide under the blanket of absolute immunity, because if they claim to be a state employee, whether they're DCF or state police or a judge or whatever it is, they all say, well, under sovereign immunity, we have absolute immunity and you can't sue us because we're the state. And even though I'm a person and I'm employed by the state and they're my employer, I'm going to say that I am the state, therefore you can't sue me. And that's what they do. Have you tried?
Wrong. And what's funny is I've had the same exact experiences, the country clubs included. But what's bizarre, and I don't know if you've ever covered this in any of your other episodes, but there's a group that coaches and trains these lawyers. They're called the AFCC out of Wisconsin. And the AFCC has conferences, big ones, where I have a copy of one that was kind of pirated, videoed. And they literally have a presentation on the board. It says how to beat alienation accusations in court, how to beat molestation accusations in court, how to bury evidence in court. These assholes are coaching domestic lawyers how to hurt children by burying cases.
Wow. You know what? I just looked it up while you said that, and it says that the AFCC is the Association of Family and Conciliation Courts. That's an international membership organization made up of judges, custody evaluators, GALs, mediators, therapists, lawyers, social workers, and other professionals involved in family law and child custody disputes. And it said it was founded in 1963 in California. And it says that it's been criticized because many people accuse it of being a tight-knit network that heavily influences family court outcomes in ways that favor court-appointed professionals and the revenue that they generate over the actual best interest of the child. And that there are allegations from whistleblowers and parents' rights groups that AFCC members protect one another, perpetuate bias, and promote controversial psychological theories such as parental alienation in ways that can harm protective parents. And I did want to say one thing about that is because a lot of these like advocates and people get hung up on the term parental alienation. And in this context, where it refers to parental alienation as a controversial psychological theory, just to clarify, it's referring to Richard Gardner, who had a theory, he's now passed away, and he had a theory, which was just a theory, that said that if during a divorce or custody proceeding, a child makes a disclosure about sexual abuse of their father to the daughter or whatever, that they're doing this because of the trauma of whatever's going on and or being coached by the mother. So the solution to this is to immediately remove the kid from the mother and give them to the father that's being accused of sexual abuse. So it's kind of like what you just described earlier, which, okay, the person who reports the abuse loses the child, and the person who's accused of abuse gets custody. That's in line with the parental alienation theory, PAS, or PAS syndrome, stemming from the PA theory.
Yeah,
That
and they use it
Gardner,
against me. They said you're trying to alienate the mother because the stepfather is the bad guy. And I'm like, well, the stepfather and the mother live together with my daughter. It's the same household.
yeah, my judge tried to say that I'm obviously doing this because of my distrust for the father. What do you mean? Am I supposed to trust somebody who lets his teenage
Oh
son
yeah,
sexually assault my kid?
I was hit with anger. You have anger issues because of what happened to your daughter. Oh, you think a parent shouldn't be angry that their child's being molested?
Exactly. And so it's like a lot of
I was
people,
ordered by judge to say you have to go to psychology, anger management, and parental classes because of your anger issues about your daughter's molestation. That was the judge's final order, which I said no, thank you.
oh, the judge tried to say I needed psychological evaluation to see why I kept lying about the sexual abuse, even though I never lied. And
Well,
this
they
is
actually
so-
put me through psychological evaluation. I passed all mine. My ex-wife failed all of hers, but still I was kept prevented custody.
yeah, of course.
They
And
didn't
so
like the fact that she failed hers, so they assigned me only new ones with shocking judge-appointed people.
and I'm sure you had to pay for that, right?
No, I didn't pay for anything because I knew, again, if the judge assigned it, it's going to be framing me, so I didn't go. And because I didn't go, now they're using that as the reason not to give my daughter back because he refused to go to anger management with our assigned framers.
Yeah, to the illegally ordered anger management that they have no legal right to order you to.
No evidence of anger in the history of my life. I have 0 indictments, 0 complaints, 0 criminal. I mean, I'm as close as a man can be to a Boy Scout in this era. I am a Boy Scout. But yet I am accused of, oh my God, you're angry about your daughter's molestation and her removal from your home. No shit.
I know, it's like, it's crazy. And back to what I was saying, like I wanted to make this point, like, so obviously like a lot of people know like what the Richard Gardner theory of parental alienation is, and that's why they don't like that term and they don't want to use it. But when people talk about parental alienation now, a lot of people mean like, okay, they, now that the abusive parent got custody, they don't let you see your kid. They don't let you talk to your kid. They don't tell you anything about appointments. They don't sign you up on the school or anything. They do anything possible to block you from your kid.
That's
a lot of people,
alienation.
Yeah, that's alienation. And a lot of people consider parental alienation, that's what they think of in their head. And so the people who get upset with the term are upset with the theory, which I think it's true. They should be upset with that theory because it's dangerous. And I know that, they're definitely following that theory in my state and in many states in the country. And it's scary to think that like, it's almost like inverted, like in a real system of justice, the person who's doing the abuse would lose the custody, not the opposite.
Well, it's more than inverted. It's actually designed that way. So let me talk about Gardner and alienation from my research, okay? I've read 60, 80 books on this topic now. And I'm going to get deep here, so bear with me. First of all, Gardner was a drug addict, was a bipolar, and committed suicide. That needs to be stated for the record. So the theory of alienation came from a guy who was clearly imbalanced, clearly a drug addict, and clearly suicidal. So just that needs to be understood about that guy before you even talk about anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So secondly, alienation, AFCC, going back to those criminals, alienation is used as a defense mechanism, to your point, against protective parents. If a protective parent like you or I say, hey, my child is being molested, sexually groomed, whatever, in said household, mom or dad, it no longer matters gender. It's genderless. If a child's being harmed, it doesn't matter if it's mom, dad, stepdad, stepmom, stepbrother, stepsister. It is abuse, period. That home and its associated members of that home. That's my example. My ex-wife didn't groom or molest my daughter, but her husband did. Well, she's married to him and he's in that house. So sorry, mom, you're going to lose your daughter until you divorce and remove this man from the home. That should be temporary suspension of parenting until it's proven he's gone. But what the AFCC teaches these lawyers, GALs, and psychopaths, if you use alienation early, we can prevent the removal of that child from the abusive home. Because that's what was used against me. Well, if we remove the daughter to protect her from the stepdad, mom's alienated from the daughter. So the fuck what? It's protecting the child at all costs. So the Gardner theory is used as a defense to protect abusers, number one. The second way it's used is what we're talking about. Actual alienation, removing a parent from medical meetings, school meetings, financial meetings, programs, summer camps, basketball games, whatever. If you're telling another parent a different time so they don't come, or you're lying about having an event or not having an event, or you're lying about a vacation or not a vacation, or you're not giving that parent access to the school or the report cards or the library stuff, that's alienation. That's the definition and truly understood the definition of alienation. Now, here's where it gets complex. Gardner's theory about alienation and that phrase is correctly applied to that scenario. So if the parent is removing the child and removing the other parent systematically from medical, activities, school, etc., that parent is alienating, and that is abuse, which doesn't trigger that parent being removed for custody in some states and some countries. However, when they go to domestic court into this corrupt system, alienation is used as a defense from the abuser, more so than used as offense against the abuser. And that's vital to understand. So what big groups now, beyond the AFCC, who's funded by USAID, who's funded by the United Nations, who's funded by the US taxpayer, and this is where it gets nasty. The United States taxpayer is unknowingly funding Title 4D, USAID, who funds AFCC, and funding the United Nations, who is now trying to eliminate parental alienation in court cases worldwide. Why? Because true objective alienation, removing the parent from activities, removing the parent from the child's life, can be proven. If you remove alienation from the lexicon, you allow parents to remove other parents systematically, and there's no recourse for it. And what they're using, the AFCC is doing, is they're using alienation as a defense for abusers. So it's retarding, it's abusing, it's misusing that phrase. So people hate that phrase. So what you're getting is the alienation theory is being attacked from both sides to remove it, because it's no longer effective to keep abusive parents in the home. It's becoming more effective to keep good parents near their kids for being systematically removed. And that's not profitable for the UN, USAID, AFCC, domestic courts around the world. That's the bottom line. Alienation these people are picking and choosing when to use it to defend abusers.
Yeah, and also that's kind of like a perfect example of what happened in my case, because I had hired a lawyer. I was pro se always, and I was fine being pro se, but then my ex kept threatening me so much in 2022, and I was feeling nervous because I didn't know what he was going to do. So I hired a lawyer, and that was a big mistake because this lawyer was super corrupt. And I hired him in August of 2022. October of 2022, my daughter first makes disclosures about sexual abuse. The lawyer, when I told him, he was like, oh, No, she's not. She's not being sexually abused. What do you think the judge is going to say when you tell her this? You think the judge is going to be happy? She's going to think you're lying. Da 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 da. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why would she think I'm lying? Like, my daughter is saying this. Like, we should be taking this seriously. And I said, like, what should I do? He's like, nothing. You're going to keep sending your daughter every weekend to her father's, like the court order says, and that's it. I said, okay. So then I had called DCF because I discussed it with my therapist, and the therapist said that she was a mandated reporter and told me that she said, look, I'm a mandated reporter. I have to report this to DCF, but it's better if you report it because you know all the details. But if you don't want to, then I will. So I was like, fine, I will. So I told DCF. And then like that same day, I had that talk with my lawyer. He's like, no, da da da. Then DCF calls and they're like, oh, we want to see your daughter. We got the report. We need to see her within 24 hours. And I was like, well, she's going to be with her dad tomorrow because she goes with him on the weekend. And they're like, DCF was like, why would you be sending your daughter to her dad if there's these concerns about sexual?
They asked me too. They interviewed my daughter on one of her Mother's Days, and they're like, I'm like, why can't you interview her with me? Oh no, we want to interview her on the mom. So she can be manipulated in those 3 days to say whatever it has to be said because she's with the stepfather.
Well, I'm the one who made the report, and then it was like a Thursday, and then I'm saying to her, they're like, oh, can we come tomorrow on Friday? And I'm like, no, she's going to be with her dad. And they're like, why would you send her to the dad? That's where she's being abused. Why would you send her there? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Hold on. Let me talk to my lawyer. I call my lawyer. I'm like, DCF is asking me, why would I send her there? You're the one telling me that it's not a big deal and all this stuff. And he's like, just tell your ex in Family Wizard that you're not going to send her, and tell DCF you're going to keep her with you until further notice. So I did. I told DCF, okay. I sent my ex a message, and I said to and DCF goes, okay, is your lawyer going to file an emergency ex parte to stop the visits? And I was like, he says he is. So then he told me that he would file an emergency ex parte the next week. But when the next week rolled around, he goes, oh, I'm not going to file that because it's unnecessary. He's like, no judge is going to hold you in contempt for keeping your kids safe. He's like, just continue to withhold your daughter. Do not send her for the weekend visits.
Yeah, and that's setting you up as the alienator.
Yes, exactly. So then I'm listening to my lawyer. I'm like, okay, whatever. Then my ex goes to the court and he files a motion for contempt saying that I didn't bring my daughter for her weekend visits and that I'm keeping the child away from him. Then my lawyer doesn't file any objection. He doesn't file any ex parte. He files absolutely nothing. Then when we go to court in March of 2023, she had made a second disclosure and a second forensic interview by then. And during the second investigation, the same thing. My lawyer advised me to not send her to the dad, and the police, DCF, and my lawyer all said the same thing. They said, keep your daughter safe. Don't send her to dad's until the investigation is over. And I said again to the lawyer, can you file for an emergency ex parte so that I'm not going to be in trouble for violating by not bringing her to dad? And he's like, no, you're fine. The judge will understand. And then when we went to court in the end of March of 2023, I asked for an ex parte finally because my ex went when my daughter was sleeping and abducted her from school. He woke her up from her nap, took her in the middle of nap and just took her. And she was supposed to go to a psychiatrist appointment that day. And he knew about it. And he went and got her to stop her from going to the doctor. And when my lawyer finally filed for the ex parte after that, Grossman was like, oh, well, if you don't start letting her go see her dad, I'm putting an order that you are required to send her to the dad. And my lawyer told me that if I didn't send her to the dad, that I better bring a toothbrush to my next court date because she was going to put me in jail. So I was threatened with going to jail if I didn't start sending her back to the dad. And meanwhile, I have sole custody of my other kid. And I'm over here in law school, my own house, having to take care of all these responsibilities. I can't afford to go to prison and leave my other child alone and all this. So I'm like, fine, I'll comply. And then the abuse continued. Then my daughter starts having nightmares and all these things where she starts screaming and saying, no doesn't mean yes. Yes doesn't mean no. Like all these things like she's being brainwashed. Like they brainwash her and then they're teaching her to say things like, oh, I was just kidding, or I don't remember, or I forgot. and like all these things. And it's just like absolutely terrible. And so, like I said, then finally by May of 2023, the judge said she was going to remove my daughter from me. And she said, oh, you didn't let her, you kept her away from the father. The father is he's going to foster a relationship between the mother and daughter. So now he's going to get sole custody transferred to him. And since he got sole custody transferred to him, he completely cut me off from everything. He removed her from therapy, from doctors, from Sunday school, stopped letting her go to church. And not to mention, the judge ordered 2 different times orders about my daughter practicing her religion, which the judge was a Jewish judge issuing orders of how a Christian child can practice her religion. It doesn't get more illegal than that. And if it was the other way around, or if it was any other religion besides Christian, I believe that they wouldn't be able to just get away with it. And people seem to like have so much disrespect for Christianity these days and have no problem mocking it and disrespecting it and trampling all over it. But when it comes to every other religion, everybody has to be so politically correct. And, you know, I was really upset by that, especially because I had orders in there that said that I make all religious decisions for my child and sole religious decisions. So if that order's in there and then this judge goes in and makes an order saying my daughter no longer has to go to church, what business does she have saying that? And we had an order where my ex agreed to take her to all religious events. And the judge goes, no, he's not going to take her to services anymore. Why would he want to take her every Sunday? He has other things to do on Sunday. And he didn't even say this. She's saying it, arguing for him. And so I feel like a lot of these like pedophiles especially are in a lot of these like groups, like where they coach each other. It's like the script. Where it's like,
they call it the playbook, right? They
Yes.
call it the playbook, and the AFCC actually has a playbook. Believe it or not, it's actually named after the AFCC playbook. I agree with everything you've said, and I have the exact same experiences. We were taking Jewish holidays off for the judge and the GAL and the other people involved when they're by state law. They're not allowed to take days off of domestic court because the court doesn't recognize Jewish law. They recognize Christian law, and they're a state employee. They've got to work. Well, the judge was postponing our case for 2, 3, 4 months at a time till the next hearing because of a Jewish holiday coming up. And she was, oh, I'm so busy. I have 1,800 cases. I got 1,700 cases. I got 1,500. Every time the number would change. Yet what's bizarre about my case, especially against other cases I've reviewed, is most cases are lawyers come into a big group Zoom or come into a big group meeting in person. And the judge goes, okay, case Antar versus state or whatever. And you come up and she reviews or he reviews your stuff and like, okay, we came up last month and we did this and here's my ruling and here's our stuff. And everybody leaves. And then the next group of the herd comes up on Zoom or in person. What's bizarre about my case and other cases in Chicago is when it's a high conflict case, they have the same thing. It's like the herd. Do you know how many of my hearings had any other witnesses, court watchers, other families involved ever? 0. From the first hearing during COVID until the last hearing, we were never allowed to have a person observing, another family in the room, another witness in the room. When I brought experts and character witnesses into the court, the judge threw them out of court. We brought them in, gave a bullshit excuse off the record. She turned the stenographer off. She made up a bullshit excuse, threw my witnesses, threw my experts, threw my doctors, threw my psychologists, threw my witnesses out.
So does it say in the transcript, like, we went off the record and then went back on? Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. Over and over. And she never let anyone else hear my daughter's case. And I found out why. When Kevin McCown, an attorney for the Illinois School Board, first came in, when I subpoenaed the school records and the school people, because they had confirmed my daughter had told me 50 times that I told the social worker, that I told the nurse, that I told my teacher that, Chris touches me. Great. They're witnesses. Come in under oath and say, yes, the little girl did say that she was molested. Done. Every single one hid behind the Illinois school board lawyer. Illinois school board lawyer filed 17 quashes to my subpoenas. Do you know how illegal it is to not let a parent see their child's medical records when they're underage?
Did they grant the subpoena quashes?
Of course they did. They didn't let me see anything. And they submitted doctored, this is no lie. The Illinois school board submitted doctored evidence to my case. Doctored social worker schedule, doctor nurse notes, and they wouldn't even allow the psychology notes to be released, stating they were destroyed. On record saying they were destroyed. HIPAA violations times 80. That means social worker goes to jail, school principal loses his job, Illinois school board gets a smack, District 64's school sitting board gets a smack. Everybody broke laws, including the mandated reporter law, which in Illinois is 1 to 2 years mandatory jail sentence for not reporting child abuse. I did the math on how many times she went to see the social worker. 96 times over a year and a half. Do you know how many years of prison that is split up between these assholes? It's like 200 years in prison. Mandatory prison. This isn't, oh, there's a jury and there might be a decision. It's no, if the child says she's abused and you didn't report it, you go to jail. Do not pass go.
Yeah, in theory.
Why did the judge keep everyone out of my case, throw me off of parenting, protect the pedophile, assign her fixers, and keep this case quiet? Because the Illinois school board has 200 years of jail time to face, and they couldn't let the little girl talk to the dad again, which is why Gail O'Connor was assigned and quashed my Zoom calls and phone calls with my daughter. That's why I was never allowed to have her without supervision, which is her other assigned supervisor. I was never allowed to go to school events after this all started because I could prove if my daughter and I were in the same room together with any other witness besides a court-controlled witness, these people go to prison. So they're literally protecting themselves from prison time and fines and losing of licenses because my little girl and her dad aren't allowed to talk to each other. So the judge's motivation for preventing me from parenting isn't Gardner's alienation theory. It's not this AFCC playbook. They'd use those things. But the real reason why my daughter and me are not allowed to talk to each other is because if she says to anyone in an objective authority, state attorney, state police, that she was coached by Jessica Sindel, Gloria Block, Gail O'Connor, the school nurse, the school social worker, Laura Campbell, the teacher, the principal, to not tell her story, do not pass go, do not collect $200 straight to jail. That's why my daughter is not allowed to talk to her father, is because she's the key witness of her own abuse and the negligence of authority licensed professionals.
Well, I think it's also important to kind of take it a step further and say, okay, well, yes, they're trying to cover their own tracks, but initially it almost sounds like maybe there was some connection or bribery that took place, because why did they want to cover it up in the first place? Not for fun. Maybe some of these people genuinely do get pleasure out of torturing others, and I'm sure many of them do, but do you believe that either your ex or her partner had bribed or done something her
partner is a broke bitch. She's one of those cuck males that you read so much about. He was living in his mother's basement at 39 years old before he moved into my ex-wife's house. He's not the money. He's a loser. But, he tolerated her bullshit, so she moved him in because my ex can't be single for more than 3 weeks.
Does she have connections, or does her family have
No,
money?
not really. I mean, they both come from kind of white trash backgrounds. I'm the one who's educated. I'm the one who kind of has more of a, political ties to people. But I think really what it comes down to is they found out real quick the school screwed up, and the Illinois School Board, CPS, which is our Chicago Public Schools, and the teachers union They are the most powerful unions in the country, bar none. They shut down highways for pay raises in Illinois. They have kids exonerated. They have kids convicted to protect their own rights. And if the Illinois school board doesn't sign off on a governor or a mayor, they don't become governor or mayor. They just don't. So you have 4D channeling through J.B. Pritzker, governor's office. You have Illinois school board approving him. And guess who on my Judge Karen Bowes used to consult for as a lawyer? The Illinois school board. So she was a hand-picked Illinois school board lawyer who became an Illinois domestic sitting judge. Shocking. She's protecting the school board. Wow. Never saw that one coming.
Wait, so in Illinois, are judges appointed or elected?
There's a bit of both, but mine was assigned. Mine was appointed.
Okay. Yeah, like in Connecticut, all of them are appointed except probate judges, which are the only ones that get elected.
Yeah,
which
and
is
the only way to
weird.
get appointed is politically, this period.
Yeah, and like to be removed, it's only like the governor or like the whole entire legislation of the state has to like unanimously approve of it. But that never happens. I don't think they've ever impeached a judge.
No, so like I said, we're not dealing with, oh, they messed up a little girl's story to the mom, you, or to the dad, me. They're not, they didn't make a mistake or they didn't slip up or they're not trying to protect father or mother's rights in these cases. It's genderless. It's sheer criminal corruption, motivated by money, coached by more political reasons, religious reasons, and ultimately protecting their own kin, their own people over and over for future advancement, future cash, future payoffs. It's corruption squared. It's the most crazy, and unless you lived it or unless you're adjacent to it, you don't believe this shit could happen in America, but it does happen every day.
So it's almost like, do you think a lot of it is just to try to make as much disruption as possible to then try to like extort as much money out of the desperate protective parent as they can? Because like how much money
I believe it started as that. I believe that still though. We did the math once, me and a colleague of mine. We did the math once on a GAL. Let's say a GAL can handle 40 cases at a time, which is, I believe, average. 40 cases at a time. Let's say they're working 60-hour weeks. Okay. And that's being generous. Most GALs are lazy pieces of crap. They don't read anything. So let's just say GALs 60 hours a week.
They're billing 60 hours a week.
The national average for a GAL is about $300 an hour. Okay. $300 an hour times 60 hours a week is 18 grand a week. Simple math. Okay. Times 4 weeks. Okay. Now we're into the 50 range. Okay. It's 70, but when you start cutting hours in other cases, whatever, but let's just call it 60,000 to be fair. Okay. 60 to 75,000, give or take, per month. Multiply 60 by 12 months is $720,000. Okay. A lot of money. More than doctors, more than most lawyers, more than architects, more than accountants, right? Most business owners don't clear 720. So a lot of money. But how much money would I have to pay you to ignore a little girl crying that she was raped or molested? How much money would one time I pay you? How much bribery money would I have to pay you to ignore a little girl who just got molested or raped? Is there a number?
For me, there's not, but I'll tell you what, when I first started posting, somebody who was a DCF worker in New York contacted me after seeing my post on social media. And he told me that he's had multiple coworkers who walk into homes where people will pull them aside and say, look, I have a lot of cash. Tell me how much I need to give you to make you not investigate this case. And they take it and they take the money. So you know what? It happens.
Agreed. Well, my investigator worked at Salvation Army as a bell ringer before she was a caseworker. So did they pay her off? I know my GAL paid her off because my GAL actually admitted this in transcript that she had direct contact with the investigator, even though she was never with the investigator. How do you have direct contact? Because you made a payoff. So yes, But going back to my global theory here, let's say a GAL makes $720,000 a year, 40 cases in rotation. Let's say it's 200 kids per year, right? Because cases rotate in and out. But you can only make, your max is 720, 60 hours a week at $300 an hour is $720,000 a year, give or take. You see 200 kids. If domestic statistics are correct, 20% of post-decree divorce arguments happen over abuse of the children. 20%. Now, 70% claim abuse, but 20% are founded abusive. Okay, so the number is probably somewhere in between, right? Two sides of every story. So let's just do quick math. Let's just say half include abuse. Post-decree divorces, GAL assigned, half involve abuse. 100 kids are being abused on your watch as a GAL. 700 grand to turn the blind eye? Nope, it doesn't add up. Ignoring one kid, 1 million, 500,000, maybe. Ignoring 100 kids, $500,000 doesn't get it done. $1 million doesn't get it done. You have to have something internal to your body that's either missing, like a soulless vacuum of a human, or, and this is where it gets dark, it's a religious belief system. Because the only time you would hurt someone else in most historic cases, war, genocide, etc., is for a religious belief. Why would a sitting GAL directly let children get raped, murdered, abused, molested? It ain't for 720 grand a year. It ain't for the money. It's because I think that there's something darker and deeper here. I believe a lot of these people are religious fanatics that believe they get some sort of reward for punishing kids.
I think some of it is like, I like to refer to it as domestic terrorism, because a lot of it is like, I think like mass, like psychological experiments on the American public, because like in the past, our government has admitted to doing things like MK Ultra, which they never formally admitted that they stopped that. And they only were forced to admit it after whistleblowers kept putting heat on it. And it's like so many things that they did that were so nefarious that they later unsealed these files and said, oh yeah, by the way, we did this. By the way, we did that. So it's like this whole thing, I think, is to try to like, destroy the strength of the family unit throughout the country. And also like, think about it on a mass scale. What does it do psychologically to a child if you forcibly remove them from a loving parent that wants to be in their life? Is there any studies about that? I can guarantee you there's not. But you know what? If you want to look
I can guarantee you there are studies about it. The problem is that you don't hear about them.
Well, no, I'm saying there's probably not, because right now we are the test subjects. If you want to do the studies, you can do surveys on parents over the last 10, 20 years and find your research and see how many of them had children who committed suicide, how many of them had children who became addicts, how many of them then funneled into other systems where they can be exploited for money. And like, think about it. Like if they illegally take your kid and you're so desperate, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to try to hire a lawyer. It's extortion. And it's like, look, you want your kid back? You got to pay. That's what they said to me. It's going to be 200 grand to get your kid back. It's going to be 30 grand for us to look through your file. 30 grand to look through my file. I could just tell you what's in the file. You don't need to look at anything. It's simple. And they just try to extort you as much as possible. Oh, well, if you're going to file an appeal, it's going to be expensive. Why is it going to be expensive? I can just file it myself. Why do I need to hire somebody and pay them $600-700 an hour to do the same thing that ChatGPT can do? Like, and then they're mad because it's like they want the monopoly on the practice of law, which the Supreme Court of the United States has repeatedly stated that you can't create a liberty into a license. So by them licensing the practice of law and monopolizing it and making all of these things like AFCC and the bar associations and all these things, which are nonprofit, non-regulated, private entities that are making their own rules and making these private membership organizations. And like, I did research into the nonprofits because you can go and look through, at their IRS records and their 990s, and like it shows you who sits on the board of directors. And I was looking, and it's like on the domestic violence, for example, they have like one where it's like Connecticut Alliance Against Sexual Violence or something. And like they have all these different nonprofits. They're getting millions of dollars in grants from the federal government, which they then are funneling to other nonprofits that are also run by the state. And they're giving it to themselves as lobbying or gifts or whatever. And the people who sit on the executive boards are the judges and the same people who work for the victim advocate's office. And like all these same people who were corrupt in my case are the ones sitting on the executive boards of these nonprofits that are getting millions of dollars and investing the money and spending millions and millions on their own personal salaries and benefits, but denying actual help to people, even though the only reason they're getting the money is because they're lying to the federal government and saying that they're going to give free lawyers and legal assistance and legal aid to people. But if you call the legal aid, like I could call them right now and be like, I need legal aid. And they're going to say, oh, well, we're not taking any new people right now. And this is the same thing they've said for the last 15 years. They never take any people. They just steal the money.
No, I know. I've been through the same process. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, to kind of wrap it up, there's nothing a normal parent can do. If you're the targeted parent and you go into domestic court expecting justice or to protect your children, you're not going to get it. You're just not. It's not, because there's money is on the side of the abuser. Money's on the side of the lawyers. Money's on the side of injustice. All the money works in the system to give abusers the kids, to protect themselves, to assign their buddies, kickback city, no appeal process of value, no complaint process of value. It's one big club, and if you bring your kid into it to defend your child from abuse, you've already lost. Especially if you have money. If you have money, like I used to have a lot of money, I go into the system expecting, oh, well, I can hire the best lawyers. Your best lawyers are part of the system. Oh, I have political connections. Yeah, they know where the money comes from. They're not going to let you win your kid. They got to keep the system in place to protect the judge's pension plan.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why, like early on, they'll make you do a financial affidavit.
Oh, absolutely.
And list all your assets and all your income and everything, so they can be like, okay, this person is a high value person. Let's milk them for all they're worth. And that's what they do. They like extort and target people based on.
No, they do.
Assets.
My ex-wife and her lawyer filed SEC and DOJ complaints against me and my company to get all of our financial records. And the DOJ, under FOIA, we proved that the DOJ fed my documents to specific lawyers and law firms in Chicago that were targeting me in domestic court.
Without even like consulting you first?
Why would they consult me first? It's a criminal organization. And my FOIA request for more detail of who they gave it to was denied, which is against the law. Once you're cleared of wrongdoing, which I was, SEC and DOJ found me clean, my shop clean. Guess what? I put a FOIA request in to say, okay, who turned me in? Oh, we don't have to disclose that. Yes, you do. Unless it's one of their people.
No, have you had?
I was targeted because my company did very well for a long time. They destroyed me. They created false accusations, just like domestic court. But when the bank account was dry, then they were willing to give me my daughter back under these conditions. Well, the conditions are psychology, mental evaluation from your own people. Because now you've committed the crime, right? You removed the child, you extorted the money, you've protected the abuser, you've protected the school abusers. Now you need to create this reason why after the fact. So now you need me to be an angry person with your person framing me, a psychologically imbalanced person from your person framing me, some other level of thing to then retroactively say, well, this is why we removed her. No. You removed her because I filed abuse claims against her stepfather, and you in your best judgment thought Dad's wrong. Stepdad's right. Let's give the daughter to stepdad who's molesting her. And I got proved through staying away from my daughter. The Illinois state DCFS proved I was innocent. The Illinois school board admitted they destroyed her records. The Illinois school board admitted they didn't report her abuse. The Illinois school board admitted to doctoring notes. The Illinois school board admitted to destroying evidence. The GAL admitted to destroying evidence. The opposing counsel admitted to destroying evidence. I caught them in 57 different affidavit signed lies. You can't get away from your crimes because I have an anger management problem that you framed me for after you did all this to me. Any human would be angry about this. And there still, I had no outward outburst ever, even in court. I never lost my temper, but there need me to be guilty of something to justify what they've done to my family.
Yeah. And I think that's all part of that same playbook, like you were referencing, because that's what they do. They try to do everything they can and then point the finger at you and say, look, I told you that this person's unstable and this, and that, but you only were destroyed because of what they did to you. So it's like a trap.
It's standard gaslighting manipulation 101. You blame someone for their reaction from your abuse.
Exactly. So I know you said you had some struggles with the appellate court and stuff. I don't know if you've tried stuff in federal court. What's your kind of next steps from here on out with this?
Unfortunately, I can't disclose that because it is kind of hidden strategy. But yeah, there's a couple balls left in the cannon I have an idea about, but it won't be talked about today.
Okay, no problem.
Let me talk about them off record.
Yeah, no problem. We'll definitely have to keep an eye out for what happens from now, but I do hope that you do get justice. And I think that you've done a great job of keeping things documented very well, and you're covering all your bases, and seems like you've done a lot of research too.
I've read everything I've had available to me, and what's crazy is I've been fed some really cool things from other parents who've dug themselves but are scared to come forward. And I think the key is I'm going to release at some point the AFCC conference I have on video. It is so filthy. The parents who don't believe the parents who are going through this should have to sit and watch the hour and a half of clip I have of this conference, where they're literally on PowerPoint explaining how to cover up child abuse. If you don't understand how dirty and dark this is after watching that AFCC conference, you're the problem.
I think the public needs to see it. And, that's kind of the only thing I think that will help is public needs to be informed on a mass scale of what's going on. The problem with the public
is, everybody wants peace. Everybody wants to go home at night and to believe they're doing the right thing with their job or their family or their friends. I mean, some of us just want to go home and have a stiff drink and get laid. We don't want to deal with the war that this is. But that's exactly what it is. It's a holy war. It's a war on children's souls. It's a war on parental mental health. It's a war on financial health of parents. It's a war on American citizens. It's a legitimate war on Americans. And there is no peace and calm in war. And the more people that know about it, I hate to say it, I don't think it's going to help anything. I think a lot of these parents who don't have their kids involved in this, like happened with me, you lose your community. You lose your friends, you lose your school friends. Because when they think you're the bad parent and you lose your kid, they assume, oh, the court said Ryan's the problem. He's the problem. Because when you lose your community, you lose your church, you lose your supporters, you lose some family or friends over this situation, which happens to all of us. Those people assume you're the bad person, but that's the power of the playbook. By reducing the protective parent down to nothing, you can beat them. If parents believed kids, if parents supported parents going through domestic trauma, if parents supported other false accusers faster or asked deeper questions faster, maybe this shit didn't happen. But the power is in isolating the accused parent, the protective accused parent, away from the abusive parent, because the abusive parent keeps the community, they keep the family, they keep the school people. And that's the power these fuckers have. And unfortunately, I haven't seen many examples of parents not losing family support, friends support, jobs, boyfriends, girlfriends, lovers, husbands, wives over this, because it destroys you. And people think for a split second you might actually be guilty of these things they say about you.
Yeah, and I do think that it does help to people to speak up and like share their stories and like advocate about it, because maybe somebody might hear my story, they might hear your story, and they never went to court yet, and maybe tomorrow their child is going to disclose sexual abuse, and maybe they're going to make a different choice rather than trusting the police or DCF or the court to protect their child.
Yeah,
and
honestly, you can trust. This is my advice to parents. If your child says that mom or stepdad or dad or grandpa or uncle or aunt abuse them, nighttime, go to a swap meet on the weekends, buy an old beat up wooden bat or golf club, wait until dark, wear a COVID mask, because you don't want to get infected. Wear a COVID mask and make a visit, and make sure the person with their right hand or left hand, whichever hand they may have, make sure they can't use that hand again. That, to me, it's going to save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're going to have your kid intact. You're going to destroy the threat. And you don't have to worry about the American justice system, because it's not the American justice system. It's the American profit system. I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying is you avoid a lot of bullshit if you just go to the source of the problem. Because when you go to the source of the solution, quote unquote, they're criminals, they're corrupt, they're there to make money off your kid, and they're there to remove your kid from your house.
Yeah.
If I had to go back in time and I had to serve 6 months in a state penitentiary for beating the living fuck out of the stepfather that molested my daughter, I'd have my daughter for 2.5 years since then. I would only lost her for 6 months. But now I lost her for 3 years because I told the truth, and so did she. My little girl told the truth about who hurt her, and I lost her for 3 years. And counting, over 3.5 years now. So yeah, COVID mask, used baseball bat or golf club at a swap meet, pick a dark night, and take care of it yourself. That's my advice to parents.
Well, my advice is, definitely look into alternatives other than trusting the system. And there's ways, I know one girl, she's in an abusive situation. She went to a DV shelter and they helped her change her identity and move to another state with her child. And they were safe after that. So, there's so many different routes somebody can take, but going straight to the court and expecting justice, I would not recommend that. And I could say too, is like, nobody really cares until it happens to them or someone they love or their family. And it's like so easy to watch it happen to someone else and say, oh, well, that person must have done something bad, or maybe the court was right, or whatever. There must be more to the story. But if this can happen to me, if this can happen to you, it can happen to anyone. I know people who are doctors, lawyers, like, I'm
a private equity guy. Okay. I'm a private equity investor, a venture capitalist. I know Wall Street traders, doctors, lawyers, accountants, male and female. Remember, everything I'm saying is genderless. Everything I'm saying is genderless. It doesn't matter if you're the mom or the dad.
And also there's
the protective parent or the abusive parents.
And
but yeah,
also,
there's no justice. The more money you have, the longer your court case will take to resolve.
Yeah, and even with the JLs, they're putting parents in jail if they can't pay the GAL fees that are being forced on them. So it's like not only they're making debtors' prisons out of the GALs, and it's just gotten to the point of where it's so blatantly corrupt and nobody is doing anything about it, that these people in power feel so like empowered by this that they think that they're just untouchable. But what I will say is that we have been seeing recently this year, I've been seeing judges, police, and like other like officials being arrested, being indicted, and stuff like that. So I think that staying thorough and like continuing to hold people accountable, like, oh, they denied your FOIA, file an appeal. Then denied your appeal, file a lawsuit. Do whatever you can to just keep going. You can't afford it, file a fee waiver. Just exhaust all those remedies, because at the end of the day, they bank on us being silent, because their little playbook only works if you stay quiet, and they bank on
Well,
you
their playbook works if you stay quiet, but it also works if you stay in the system. You have to work outside the system. You have to talk to the state police, the state attorney. You have to talk to the criminal side concurrent to the civil side, because the civil side is designed to keep you in the civil system to make money from you. You have to report shit, not to the police. They're worthless. If they hear you have an open domestic case, that they wash their hands of it. No local police. You got to go state PD, state's attorney, federal judge. You got to get out of the boys and girls club of the civil, criminal, local people. They're all part of it. You've got to get outside of that. And then by reporting outside of it, keep the records, keep the screenshots, keep the receipts. You have to.
Yeah. And also they expect people to be like too shamed or embarrassed to talk about it, which I think in the beginning, I was a little bit scared to talk about it, because I thought, what are people going to think? I had businesses. What are my clients going to say? This is so terrible. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? This corruption is getting so worse, and I'm staying silent, and it's getting worse. I'm going to start speaking up. And then I started posting more. And if anything pisses off my ex, nothing pisses him off more or gets under his skin more than me getting attention on social media about this. And because all he wants to do is put his fake narrative. So when I post the truth, and I post receipts, and I post irrefutable proof of what I'm saying, he freaks out. And it's like, okay, that's why they say the truth only comes out in the light, because they want it to stay in the dark. But you know what you're doing by coming on podcasts, you know, speaking out, joining with other parents in your area, all of these things are powerful, and they know it.
Agreed. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you so much.